Good afternoon. Special meeting of the City Commission for Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phone. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Martin?
Here.
Commissioner Perrine?
Here.
Commissioner McGurk?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman?
Here.
Mayor Cleveland?
Here.
Thank you.
So this is about the parking task force. This is the outbrief of the parking task force. Those great citizens have been hard at work for over 6 months, and on behalf of the commission, our debt of gratitude to each of you. Thank you very, very much. So are there any citizens who would wish to speak? Please approach the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the commission. This is a monologue, not a dialogue, so you'll have 3 minutes. The light will come on, the green light, the yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute, and the red light will come on when you're done, and I can help you with that if you need it. When you come forward, name and address for the record, if you don't mind, please. Mr. Williams.
Bob Williams, 767 Pine Shore Circle, New Smyrna Beach. I just want to thank the members of the Parking Task Force. They've given up a lot of time. They've been very dedicated. And I think they've come forward with a set of very strong, solid recommendations to get us started. They were very cognizant of staying away from controversial areas so we could move forward. And I just encourage you to take at heart what they are sharing. I think the most important thing in all of this is that this is not a one-off problem. This is going to be something that needs to be continued. They've got several recommendations about that. And also that nobody has all the answers today, because quite frankly, we don't have all the information. And so a big part of the early part of this plan is to begin putting the systems in place so that we can accurately understand what the real parking need is. And then as we try things, we'll make some mistakes, but we'll have the information to know what's working and what isn't working and be able to essentially embark upon a continuous quality improvement process. So again, thank you very much, task force members.
Thank you, Citizen Bob. Thank you. Any others for public participation? Yes, sir. Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you, sir. Joe Dluback, 3587 Casalta Circle. Speaking for Venetian Bay Homeowners Coalition, I applaud the addition of the Venetian Bay Town Center in the task force's deliberations. The review of the town center's parking status by an independent entity is long overdue. The expectation for a self-sufficient, self-sustaining community for Venetian Bay has long been squandered. Standing in the balance is the issue of whether those merchants that we do have in the town center can be sustained. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Any other comments to the commission? Ms. Eisen, welcome.
Good evening, Pam Eisen, 624 North Riverside Drive, and I echo Bob's sentiments. Thank you so much to the folks that volunteer to be on this commission or on this board. When they are working for the city, they're not working in their own businesses earning funds, so we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Dr. Herman.
Mayor, City Commission, and staff. Randy Herman, 108 Esther Street. As a member of, I think, one of the first iterations of the Parking Task Force many years ago, it is great to see another task force coming forth with some really excellent recommendations. And again, I thank you all for your hard work. I know it's not easy. I would like to underline just a couple of things, is that I think it is really an ongoing and forward issue for our city, and it involves a lot of vested interests. So it's important to continue to consider the residents of all those areas as well as the businesses as we move forward in making directions and making decisions. I particularly hope that the businesses can work together to find suitable parking arrangements for staff. You know, they are the lowest paid people in our community, and I know they want to park as close to work as they can. but it is a complicated situation as everybody likes to be able to be closest to where they work. But I think there is enough land, particularly around Flagler, that arrangements could be made. There are lots that are being underutilized. The one on Columbus, as far as I know, hasn't been utilized for staff or for their clients. So I hope there will be this work together on this project, because it is about all of us to making a very complex situation better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Anyone else wish to address the commission at this time on this topic? Sir.
How's everybody doing? Rob Steele, 424 Luna Bella. So as a recent small business owner, probably the number one complaint from us is just parking. It's just like, how do we get in there? Where are you guys located? We have to park so far away. So just really appreciate putting this together, including us in the report, and then just looking forward to seeing what we can do in the near term, and then hopefully try to curb anything in the long term that takes away any of the parking. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else?
What business is it? What business?
Yeah.
Is it in Venetian Bay?
Hey, excuse me. You say Rob? Rob. Is your business in Venetian Bay?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Just want to know.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Then without further ado, this time I'd like to invite to the podium Task Force Chairman Jay Pendergast, and Jay will give the final report. We'll have some discussion and questions, and then proceed from there. Are you all ready, Jay?
I hope so.
You have more
Good
than you have more than 3 minutes.
I'm used to having to talk fast, yes. But I will continue to talk fast so that we don't have to take up a whole lot of time. So let's get this show going. The Parking Task Force final report. Here's the table of contents. We'll be doing an introduction. We assess the problem, making recommendations. There's a conclusion, and then there are some exhibits, but the exhibits are in your package. Introduction. To begin, the City of New Smyrna Beach Parking Task Force was established by Resolution 0323, adopted by City Commission on January 24th. The applicants were appointed by the City Commission. The Parking Task Force met twice a month between April and September and conducted their final meeting on Tuesday, September 19th. I'd like to introduce our team. Zoe Newer, O.E. Burke, Wayne Lundberg, Tony Oddie, Liz Jones somehow didn't make the list. Ooh, how did that happen? And Serge Sorosi, who's out of town. So I want to thank, everybody's been saying a lot of thank yous, but this team really did dig into this. We discovered a lot of things over the past 7 months. We had no idea how deep this issue was. So in assessing the problem, you know, we didn't just make these recommendations because we just thought they were emotional or came off the top of our head. We did a lot of research. We started with reviewing the previous task force's report from 2020. It was very good and very thorough, but unfortunately, nothing happened with it. We had presentations from parking structure contractors. We had presentations from parking consultants. We had presentations from the shuttle provider. We had presentations from similar towns, Cocoa Beach, Ocala, Winter Springs, and actually I forgot Atlantic Beach. That's actually one of the more interesting cities that we should probably consider looking into. I think of all the towns, they may have more to do with New Smyrna. It's a beach town just north of Jack's Beach, where actually my family's from. So I'm very familiar with Atlantic Beach. We also were familiarization with existing New Smyrna Beach parking areas. We looked at the curbside parking. We looked at parking lots. We looked at the right-of-ways. We had presentations from the Southeast Volusia Chamber and they brought forth a lot of technology and data gathering. Every meeting, we had public participation, and we also reviewed the New Smyrna Beach Land Development Code. And I also want to give a shout out to Lisa Martin. Commissioner Martin attended almost every single one of our meetings. And also, one of our most interesting meetings, I contacted an author, Henry Grabar. He wrote the book Paved Paradise, which of course is exactly what we do not want to do. And he actually gave us he video conferenced in and gave us a very nice presentation and some recommendations on what we should do. And so that was a very interesting presentation. Henry considers himself sort of a parking scientist. I mean, it's not the most exciting topic in the world, but it is pretty interesting when you get into it, if you're into that type of thing. So moving forward, there were certain things that we brought about. Number one, on fiscal considerations, this needs to be accomplished with absolutely no new taxes or costs to residents. All parking and mobility improvements need to be paid for with revenue generated from parking. We also took into effect community considerations, employee parking, resident passes, right-of-ways, and we tried to remove the objectionable considerations from the 2020 report. For instance, the shuffleboard court comes up, and you know, it's just too emotional. Leave it alone, move on. Let's try to make progress and just let the shuffleboard court be for another day. They also said things like remove the palm trees on the street. No. You know, leave, you know, don't touch the controversial topics. Let's stay with what we can work with our existing community. One of the things we discovered is what we're calling from occasional to consistent attention. There have been many parking studies conducted in the city over the past 12 years, and yet here we are still discussing it. Nearly 10 years ago, the city began charging for beachside parking using kiosk, and that was previously free, and that created the parking fund, and the parking fund, and also the police department is doing the enforcement on this. And the current data indicated back in 2020, it indicated that there was a shortage of 450 spaces on Canal and a shortage of 250 on Flagler Avenue. And during the workshops that were held then, there was public consensus that we have a parking problem and that we should acquire land for surface parking and to construct parking structures. In that report also, it came up that there was an addition, we should implement metered parking, on-street parking, with higher fines and enforcement, better management, and establish a free shuttle service for remote parking. The other item that came up that's really still missing is the county and the beach parking, because we have 2,500 spaces on the beach on the sand, except when there's high tide. And so twice a day, we have a deficit of 2,500 parking spaces. Now, of course, high tide sometimes is in the middle of the night, other times it's in the middle of the morning, and that can create huge life safety issues for North Peninsula and the people living around the areas. So we really need to bring the beach parking spaces from the county. We need to get them together as partners with us because they have a lot to do with our issues. One of the things we decided from our studies is that we really need guidance from an experienced, reputable parking professional. I mean, this started out 10 years ago. I was at the City Commission meeting years ago when they said we're going to start charging for parking. And I think the consensus was, oh, this will never work. We'll be undoing this in a couple of months. And, well, it turned out to be a little more successful than we anticipated. So unfortunately, it's grown into such a large area that we really feel that we need a parking professional to come in and give us some advice moving forward as to how to best handle this. We need parking data. The collection of data and analysis regarding parking usage and demand, it's going to be an ongoing requirement. And we don't really know now if we do have a pay app by phone, but what kind of information are we getting back from that? We do have handheld devices that they write tickets with. What kind of data are we getting back from that? Is the equipment that we have expandable when we decide to move forward with parking in different areas? I mean, all of this technology and equipment, it needs to be studied and understood that do we have the best equipment? Is this the easiest for our team to work with? And that's going to require, some research. We also need to embrace technology because there's different cities in Florida using different vendors to provide paid parking services, using customer cell phones, relatively inexpensive to use. And these vendors, they can also provide a lot of parking usage reports, which gets back to the data that we really do need. So it's going to be an ongoing issue of gathering data, and that will change, hopefully. The other thing is we need to really dispel the myth that there is no such thing as free parking. I mean, someone is paying for it, and most of the time, it's not the person in the parking space. I mean, our taxpayers are paying for it. First of all, they give an easement to their property. Then it's paid for in their tax bill. And then every morning when I go out to do my exercises, a couple times a week, I see the street cleaner on Flagler. This morning, Public Works was working on the curbs in front of my office. This is an ongoing, it is costing, the citizens of New Smyrna are paying for parking right now. The unfortunate thing is, most of the time, they're not the ones in the parking spaces. So there is no such thing as free parking. We need to also understand the special conditions. Like I said, the beach accessibility and impact of ramp closures. We need to minimize the impacts that they have on the residents, especially Peninsula. And we also need to work with the business employers that they need parking for their employees, and that needs to be provided and included. And there needs to be shareholder involvement in decision-making. It's important for the residents, the business owners, property owners to speak up and be involved. This is not something that can happen in a vacuum. And the other thing that we found is a recommendation, actually, is we need productive partnerships. We need to be more effective in collaborating with the other agencies, with Volusia County, FDOT, NSB Visitors Bureau. I mean, a lot of times people will say, oh, there's a problem on this street. And then we turn around, well, that's a state street, or that's a county street. I mean, people don't understand that not every street in this city is controlled by the city of New Smyrna Beach. So we really need to have these partnerships with the county, especially the county, and also the private sector resources, because, the private sector can help solve some of our problems. They can develop a private parking lot, a paid parking lot, and it can be done within the city codes. And in fact, I believe there's one under consideration now. So finally, our recommendations. I believe, and the task force believes, that we should hire a temporary advisor consultant for the following purposes: to evaluate and provide recommendations for the Parking, Mobility, Advisory Authority, and Parking and Mobility Department. That's a lot. In layman's terms, what we want to do is create a centralized parking and mobility department, And we believe that when we say create a parking and mobility advisory authority, that parking department needs to have a citizen board, much like planning and zoning, historic preservation, and some of the other boards within the city, just so that it can be transparent and people understand where things are going. And part of the reason of needing a parking authority is, for budget and control. There's a tremendous amount of revenue here, and this revenue can really be used to help our community. When someone drives into our parking lot in this town, it should be the most beautiful parking lot they've been in. And like the Visitors and Conventions Bureau did a very thorough study a few months ago, and a lot of what they said reinforced the recommendations that we're coming up with. So we also want to, besides creating a parking authority, we are encouraging and seeking partnerships with privately owned businesses. The Chamber of Commerce and the local merchants. The Chamber's been extremely helpful in helping us gather data for this report. Also, the Visitors and Convention Bureau, I bring them up quite a bit because they have a lot of data and a lot of data that involves the tourists and the people coming here. We have to establish communication. I keep saying this over and over. Volusia County, we have to get them to the table. And immediately, these are things we want to do first. Let's first start with the people. Get the people in place to make this happen before we start getting tangled up in the minutia of what hour are you doing this and how much is going to cost for that and blah, blah, blah. Get the people in place and establish the relationships and first work with the people. And the other thing that came out is the 4-hour parking on Flagler. People are parking there, walking to the beach, so then the merchants don't have any parking. Right now it's 4 hours. We really feel from a lot of the merchants that spoke to us that we could reduce that to 2 hours, and that would help turn the parking spaces. And so they're not being used for the guy that doesn't want to pay $20 to drive on the beach, So after the people, then it really comes down to the process. That's when we need to start in phase 2, discussing the structure, the facilities, and the technology. We do believe that there should be an expansion of paid parking to all city-controlled parking areas, lots, and right-of-ways within the confines of the Flagler Street and Canal Street parking districts. You have to understand, we're discussing the parking districts. We're not talking about residential neighborhoods. Right-of-way should be left alone in residential neighborhoods, but there's a lot of right-of-way that's being used right now for parking that's deplorable on Pine, Peninsula, Cooper. Those streets, that could very easily be cleaned up and turned into really nice right-of-way parking. And it's just an observation. We're looking at the expansion of payment technology that would include data collection capacities and scaled parking schedule depending on the zone, the specific lots, specific areas. I mean, you don't need paid parking 24 hours a day, but you probably do need it for 6 or 8. We want to establish a free shuttle service to be operated by a vendor through a contractual agreement. And we also want to create, I skipped over this one, a leasing structure for shared parking, because we have a tremendous amount of parking spaces in the city that are not used. I mean, when the professionals go home, the attorney's offices, the utilities commission, a lot of these places, restaurants that open for breakfast and lunch, there's a lot of pavement right now that's not being used. And if we had correct signage and directed people correctly through technology, there's a lot of parking. For instance, on North Causeway, I mean, there's a great amount of parking that's just not utilized in the busy times, because our problem is, weekends, holidays, special events. Wednesday afternoon might not be so bad, But a Saturday night, when they have 3 events going on in town, it's a mess. So those are the times that we need to, change. That's when we need the shuttles. So at any rate, so we're looking at expanding our parking capabilities with the shared lots. And the other thing is when we talk about construction and improvements to the parking lots, we need to keep the environment in mind. I mean, I think they did a really nice job just across the street because it's not all asphalt, it's not all concrete. And we don't have to pave all of these. I mean, it could be done with gravel, it could be done with other materials. We can be environmentally friendly, and that would sort of help also with the image of the community. Venetian Bay was a big topic, and we spent a lot of time on Venetian Bay. And Venetian Bay is one of those areas that, man, you just scratch your head. It has so much to do with the developer and not a whole lot to do with the city. It seems like the city's opportunities are when they come into them for site plan approvals for future projects. That's really the opportunity that the city has to pay attention to what's happening to parking. A lot of what's going on out there is unfortunate that's tied up in the development agreements. Our final phase, once we've gathered more data, have things going, we really need, there is probably a need for parking structures in Flagler Avenue and Canal Street areas. And on the screen in front of you is an example. This is the city of Ocala, what they did. And I mean, I've shown this picture to a lot of people and they've said, that doesn't look like a parking garage. And that's exactly the point. There also needs to be public workshops, but the public workshops need to be limited in scope. This topic is too large to just attack everything at one time. We need to start with the consultant, then we move to the process, then we move through it. If you just throw it out and do like, oh, we're gonna have a parking workshop, you can have people running in with all kinds of ideas and you don't get anything done. It needs to be focused on what we're doing. And so it's not just a workshop. Like everything else, this is going to be a continuing issue for the city. So our conclusion is the intent of these recommendations is to provide a relatively quick and low-cost method for additional parking within the shortest possible time frame. We want to provide the collection of data to document demand for future parking and mobility issues. We want to provide for constant focus with in-house expertise for the provision of public parking and provide for additional parking with funding generated by parking revenues with no new taxes or costs to residents. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. You have copies of all the exhibits in your report. And I mean, I can read them to you if you'd like me to continue reading, but it's on the screen. So it's all there. I'd be happy to address any questions. And if I can't answer them, I would certainly hope my team over here could save me.
Well done, Jay, and if you just stay there, I'm sure there will be some questions, for sure, comments, and we'll go down the line to get that started, but well done, and we're grateful, needless to say. Let's start with Commissioner Perrine. Any questions, ma'am?
Yes, I'm wondering, and I don't know if you can answer this or people on your task force, but how many cities have a full-time person overseeing their parking tasks now? I'm mostly concerned with beach towns, and then also, since we've had so many parking past surveys, what did you call it, that we've had in the past? You said we had multiple ones, studies, which we have already identified a lot of problems, and we know that data would definitely help us. Could we hire a person that already has skill set in what a consultant would do, since we already know they need to oversee the data and to get that kicked off to save the $20,000, $40,000 it would take for a consultant. And then they could reach out and do the research from best practicing other cities. Just a question.
I mean,
You
I
guys
think
discuss that, any of those topics?
we've discussed it, and we really, I'm always about, working with what we have. I'm not sure we have a parking guru on the city staff.
No, we don't.
And, it's new, but it's an old topic. But I really think that, and some of the consultants we spoke to are not that expensive. And I don't think you need one for a long period of time, but I do think we need some guidance to go in the right direction to even know how to put out a request, for proposals, what are the topics we're supposed to be looking for? And I think a consultant could direct us in that way. The other thing is when we spoke to other cities, again, we only spoke to maybe 4, but like each one, it's handled differently. Some do have a parking authority. Some is handled through the police department. Some it's handled through the city manager's office. We did not find a consistent protocol, so to speak. But it was just very interesting. The one thing we did find is that cities like Atlantic Beach and Cocoa, when we said, has your parking program been successful? And they go, beyond our wildest dreams. So handled correctly, this can be a very good, reliable revenue source.
Thank you.
Any other comments about their work? Okay, very good. Commissioner Martin?
Thank you all for your work and attention. You were great. One of the things I noticed, it's a shame that you didn't get the 2018 study about the trolley then for the waterfront loop, because there were some things discovered then that would still be true now and may have had some influence on the free shuttle, which shuttles are horrifically expensive. And I think Zoe may be able to answer this. I spoke with somebody recently about, hey, we've got this real busy weekend coming up in January. Maybe this is a great time to try that last weekend in January between images and activities on Flagler. Why don't we try the shuttle? And I was informed that the shuttle had been tried and failed miserably. But that was one person telling me that, so that doesn't make it a truth. And I don't know whether you have anything to add. No? Okay. So, is the parking on Canal 2 hours or 4 hours? Because in the presentation, it looked like there was a 4-hour parking sign.
It's 4.
It is 4.
It is 4.
On Canal? Mm-hmm. No, I understand the 4 hours on Flagler. It looked to me like there was a 4, I thought in the presentation I saw 4 hours on Canal. On Canal. Okay, it is 4 hours now on Canal, so what we're really saying is that we want 2 hours on both streets. Is that correct?
We were
definitely
referring
on Flagler.
We were referring to Flagler, but I think it's a good idea on both streets, to be honest with you.
Okay, so
I mean,
it was
4
just-
hours is a long time to be shopping. It's a long time to be eating or drinking.
No, there's no pushback from me. A couple of years ago, I was told that the Flagler merchants had requested the 4 hours to give people time to shop and dine. I'm a big 2-hour proponent, but again, it's the businesses that I feel are the authority. So that's where I'm trying to find those two.
Well, and the problem, Commissioner Martin, is how do you differentiate the people that are parking and dining and shopping as opposed to the people that are parking and going to the beach?
Well, I personally believe that the larger problem is the beachgoers.
Beachgoers.
But again, since I don't own a business on Flagler, I am also willing to defer.
Correct.
Right, and this isn't part of the study, but to be addressed later, the current markings on Flagler are not helping our situation. We need to rethink some of the signage and markings because we have these big scary tow-away zone signs that end up reducing parking. And then, you know, we talked a lot about the beachfront parking and the oceanfront fees, but that money now is going into a general parking fund. And this is yes, I am a Flagler defender and a beachside defender. I'd like to see some way to get that revenue that's generated beachfront put back into maintaining the beachfront because of the extreme wear and tear there. But, so, anyway, I thank you all, and I appreciate your time.
Great. Any other questions for them? No. Okay, very good. Commissioner McGurk?
Thank you, Mayor. So, first I want to say, great job, folks. And the reason I think you guys did a great job is you got an idea of how comprehensive this issue is. It's just not about some parking spaces on Flagler or Canal. It's very, very complicated. And on top of that, you guys touched on all aspects of the city. So I love the fact that you guys got that, because you are vocal voices in the community that people can talk to. So now it's not just, hey, here's my problem, or this is a problem, you need to fix it. You get an idea of just how comprehensive the issue is. So I got a lot of comments. This is not the time to sit here and create the action plan. But I have 20 years on transportation committees, and I have some experience, and I agree with everything that you guys recommended. Here are bullet point comments that aren't necessarily going to flow in any particular order. And if you hear something you don't like, touch base with me, because I'm probably not getting the message across. Presenting this to the public is very important. I love the idea of having some sort of public workshops, and even maybe having that board, your board, do it. I love the idea of a continuing board. You know, we've talked a lot about boards. We've added boards. We've taken some away. But the way our community is set up, the way we generate revenue in this community, I think that a parking board of some capacity is actually a very, very good idea. Employee parking is one of a few elephants in the room. The bottom line is we have on Flagler and Canal at any given time, employees, if they're parking in the spots that the customers need to come to, we got a problem. And it's not easy, because if you have just a boutique store with 1 or 2 people in it and you need to come and go, you need a spot close. You can't park 2 or 3 blocks away. But if you have 30 people or 40 people at a restaurant at any given time and they're working there for 4, 5, 6 hours, it's a different dynamic. But who gets to park close and who doesn't? Phase 1, what I like about your plan is it was pretty comprehensive. There's nothing in there that says, hey, seize this moment, we can get this done. Phase 1, minimum a year, probably 2 to 3 years. When you're hiring the consultants, when you're employing the person in the city, when you're gathering the data is fantastic. Agree 100%. But that's a 1, 2, 3 year plan before we actually get all that data, and then we can start acting on it. So the question is, what can we do before then? Is there anything that we can start acting on? Controversy. So the only part that I disagree with you guys on is you made the point many times that you didn't touch on the controversial issues. And I'm going to tell you this. If we don't touch on the controversial issues up front immediately, we're not going to get anything done. That is actually what stops everything from getting done. So we can do as much legwork and tons of work up front, but as soon as we get into the controversial issues, everything stops. And I don't want this committee to be just like the one 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago. The controversial issues are actually the reason why things haven't gotten done. So we have to be bold. We have to tackle those issues up front, and we got to do it pretty aggressively. There's going to be people who are happy, there's going to be people that are unhappy, but that's with every decision we make. The 2 4-hour time limit. We've gone over that as a commission half a dozen times. The commission did not create that. We tried it at 2 hours, then we went to 4 hours. Now we're looking at 2 hours again. Yes, the issue, the business community has to be involved. And I think Randy Herman brought that up and said, the business community has to be involved. Again, you guys, the business community has to get together, and not everyone's going to be happy with employee parking. How much time do we park on Flagler? The business community has to be engaged in that. There has to be a discussion. The reason we're going back and forth is because the idea was we'll do 2 hours so people can't go down to the beach. But then the business community didn't like they wanted to give enough time for people to eat and shop, which makes total sense. But that 4 hours then seems to put a lot of people on the beach. And I'm not so sure that 2 hour parking, the beach is a whole separate issue. We got 3 issues here. We've got Flagler and Canal. We've got the beach parking issue, which filters back into the neighborhoods. And then we've got Venetian Bay. And I think you guys did a wonderful job at identifying those issues and how different and complex each one of those is. County involvement is key, but all you're doing is adding, we're going to add layers of bureaucracy. That is something that needs to be done, but again, we've been debating, trying to partner with the county for years. If the board, staff, and this commission sat in a room, we could nail down a lot of these parking issues. But as soon as you get the community involved, that's going to change. Well, the government entities have the same thing. Staff and the county council can get things done, but when the community gets involved, there's going to be a lot of different opinions out there. And ultimately, we serve the people. So it creates gridlock. So going back to dealing with the hard issues, until we deal with the hard issues up front, I don't necessarily see a lot getting done. That's the important part. So with that said, I'll move on to the next person, the next victim.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Hart.
So I also want to thank everybody for their participation in the report. It was a very well-rounded report. I appreciate that. You guys delved into a lot of things. You know, you went in one direction, circled back, figured out what you really needed to talk about and discuss. You came back, and you gave a very comprehensive report, and I appreciate it. I'm certainly appreciative of the fact that you included the Venetian Bay Area. That's a whole nother subject. But and like others, you know, this isn't something that we're going to be able to fix in 3 months or 6 months. So what are probably the 2 top things you think that we could do right away that may make a difference or give us a direction to go going forward?
I would say the first thing to do is to hire a parking czar. You know, create the Parking and Mobility Authority or department and make someone responsible. I mean, it's grown so much from just a few little lots to where we are today that it requires a full-time person. This is like, you know, we have people in charge of things like Brannan Center and, you know, stuff that are not particularly profitable, golf courses, marinas. This is a much bigger topic than Parks and Rec and Brannan Center and the marina. And I mean, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but this is much bigger than that, you know? So I would say the first thing to do is to make this someone's job and have a budget that they have to, you know, work to. And that would be the first thing to do. And then the second thing, I mean, oh gosh, I'll probably get shot, but you know, we could solve this 2 hour, 4 hour problem by just charging for parking, because the people that are paying for it, they'd probably stay there for about an hour. And if they do want to shop and they do want to dine and they do want to spend 8 hours, or if they want to go to the beach for 8 hours, well, then they can simply pay for 8 hours of parking. But, you know, changing the signs from 2 to 4, I mean, I would start forward with that, to be honest with you. And And I mean, there again, you're establishing your revenue stream, and you're establishing the means to actually improve the areas. And we have a lot of, there are even some surface lots that we could potentially be negotiating with landowners, property owners, to increase our parking right now, especially in the Flagler area. There's a couple of large property owners over there that we could get on board now. But you know, also the thing is we have to do this correctly. And like, yeah, we do lease a lot from Cormath, and it's a free-for-all. I mean, sometimes you get 10 cars in there, sometimes you get 20 cars in there, sometimes you have 4 lanes of traffic. I mean, it's just wherever you want to park, you know? And I mean, what would it cost to put some gravel down and some tombstones so that you know where you're supposed to park? You know, I mean, it seems very basic to me, and we don't have to cut down trees to do that. I mean, we can make it work, you know? But just if we can organize what we have, Randy, I believe we already have a lot of paved areas, which is what came out of, you know, paving paradise. I mean, use what you have first before you start expanding.
So then the other thing I want to touch on, you talked about technology, you know, that's out there. I'm assuming that you looked at different programs, and so that's truly out there now, it's available today, and it's workable, because I, like some of you think, you know, we really need the data, you know, because if we know that every space is being taken on a Saturday, then, you know, we can work accordingly. Mm-hmm. You know, if we need to hire more parking ambassadors or whatever, you know, on those days, we'll have that data that will enforce that. You know, are we having issues after 6 p.m. or is everything between 8 in the morning and 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. And if you, you know, if you think that there's the ability to gather that data out there currently today, then I think that's also something that we should look at and move forward to.
Well, it's very interesting because there's some data out there where they actually put monitors, in each parking space, and you can go to a program and say, hey, there's 4 parking spaces on 3rd Avenue. It's really amazing. And then there's some parking. I've become like a bit of a parking nerd. I mean, I've been going around Florida. I travel quite a bit. And every city I'm in, I'm looking at how they park, how they do this, how they do that. And we were, I forget which town we were in recently, where they had a parking program that made no sense. It said like, parking down here, and you follow it, and it's like, well, it's just directing you to a parking lot, not an available space. So that's one of the reasons why you need someone like solely responsible for just researching this. Like, do we have the right programs? Do we have the right equipment? And that was way beyond the scope of what we could accomplish in a few months.
Right. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Commissioner Hartman. Trying not to be repetitive here. Great U.S. naval warrior said, "He who will not risk cannot win." And so I favor Commissioner McGurk's comments and yours with, unless we do something, we won't know whether we have succeeded or failed. PhD professor I had said, fail faster, Fred. And those cycles of learning will come even faster and you will get farther. And so if we could drive out the fear of failure, that would be good. I admire the entire task force for your homeowner view and your civic merchant view, and being able to switch hats. I recognize that many of you wore 2 hats, some more than that, and the balance between how would I feel as the resident and how would I feel as the business is important for our community to understand that you took that into consideration. I want to thank your predecessor, Chairman Tony Otti, for doing a great job to get this started, and then to see the wisdom of the need for Venetian Bay to be addressed specifically, and for him stepping aside, allowing that and allowing you to step to the fore. I want to thank Assistant City Manager Nybert for his stewardship of getting you the materials, helping you move along, his experience in other municipalities, and I know that there's a learning curve that goes with that, and how you play ball up here on the dais in the sunshine. All that stuff is important, and I thank you, Ron, for leading the way with that. I really appreciate the phased approach. I'm a process guy, and so I really think you have something bottled there. I think that's going to be very, very helpful. At the end of this, I'd like to turn it over to the city manager to ask questions about the path forward, or him to opine about the path forward. I think the parking is one leg of a transportation system. Flow is important, mobility is important, and parking certainly important. I don't think this is the end all to how we fix, and it will touch other aspects that today are what I call the tragedy of the commons. It's an economic phrase where nobody really owns it, therefore everybody suffers. And so the police department kind of owns enforcement, and the city manager kind of owns a strategic plan, and the engineering department kind of owns a piece of it. And so I absolutely favor either a hired professional or a consultant to come in and lead, but unless there's a belly button that says that is my life in this town, and that is so important in this town compared to many other things, as you righteously point out, that unless we say, okay, this is important enough to buy our way out of, we're going to buy a resource, and believe me, we will be able to fund it through the revenue we get from the people that love to come to our town. Technology. I have an app on my phone that works in Chicago and Detroit and New York and Dallas, and it's the same app, and it's all about, and it's parking, and they probably get all the data that they want in the world. So it's not like, okay, well, maybe it'll come one day. It's here. Other people are doing it. I favor not stepping in every pothole, but calling the people who've gone before us in other cities and saying, hey, what worked, what didn't work, and get the answers there. So your two ideas of, first, the Vice Mayor said, what do you do first? Let's get, what do we do? The parking czar, I love it, and charge for what all the citizens are paying for today, and maybe getting the least benefit, because parking's not free. Anyway, that's my remarks. City Manager, how do you see this moving forward, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. First, debt of gratitude to all the parking task force. I had the pleasure and the honor of working with the parking task force previously. So I know what they have to go through, but as you mentioned, I'm a process guy, so this is what I'd like to happen. I think consultant, process, and implementation. And what I mean by that is I don't have anybody on the staff right now, whether they're available or have the expertise to start on this. So that's number one. And I think we need to hire a consultant. I think I heard that it could be done cheap. And I would like to consult with whoever came up with that word, because I haven't seen any consulting cheap recently. So I think hiring a consultant to go through the recommendation that we have, come up with an action plan. I'm sure there is an immediate actions that we could do, that it doesn't require timing, it doesn't require funding, and it doesn't require a lot of work. I think that's how I would like to divide the report into. And then we go into the medium range and the long range recommendations. I think it's going to take probably, I would say, between a year to 2 years to get even to the medium range recommendation. That's just my prediction. Hopefully we'll work on to do it earlier than that, but that would be my best estimate at this time. But I think having to hire a full-time at this point, not knowing what I need to do, I think it would not be wise. I think hire a consultant to work with us, figure out exactly what we needed to do, and then come up with an action plan, whether we create a new department, whether we create a new division, that would be determined later on. So, Jay and all the task force, I appreciate all your hard work, and I thank our staff, Ron and Kelly and Travis, who worked with the staff, with the task force as well. So, thank you.
You bet. Thank you for those remarks, and I'm sure we can pick on you for a couple of those. Like, when you get the consultant, who does the consultant go to? Who's the tethered goat in the house that says, "Is it you? You know, you're busy. It's not you. Is it Ron?" You know, we probably have to figure out where that
We'll
lies.
determine. We have to see. We have a continuing contract with a couple of engineering firms and one traffic engineering. We will reach out to the traffic engineering to see if they are capable of handling a task like this. If not, I have to put an RFP or RFQ actually to select a consultant to proceed.
Thank you. What is the commission's pleasure on moving forward? How would you like to proceed? We can have a motion, or we can say without objection, we're going to turn it over, or we can. I favor a bias for action, and I don't know what exactly that would be, other than the task force immediate recommendation. And so, how would you like to move forward? Yes, ma'am.
I would make a motion to go out for an RFP for a consultant to look at total mobility issues within the city.
Second.
Okay, for the purpose of discussion, very good. We have a motion and a second, and let's talk our way through that. It'll take some time to get moving on that, right? We won't have any instant reaction, and we know how long it takes to acquire folks. Is there anything you want to do before that? Or are you happy
No,
to?
oh, go ahead.
Comment. The reason why I asked what I did earlier, if we could just hire someone, since we had enough information from what they've already delivered us, which is fabulous. I think I've already personally thanked everyone on the task force, and I really appreciate it. And I like it so much, I wanted to jump right to it. So, but I want to mention something that Kala did say to me in briefings. He did say we don't have the staff right now to take on this project. And I don't know if each one of you asked that. So that's why I skipped right to, do we hire somebody first, or do we do an RFP for a consultant? I'm good with either. I love what they did, and I think with this, they could just take this and run with it. I think it's fabulous. We need the data for sure. We need an app, but we can't determine which one to go with. So that in itself is going to take in a consultant or a full-time person. So I'm willing to vote on whatever is best. And if Kala thinks it's a consultant, then I'm willing to vote on that tonight.
And Mayor, before I go out for an RFQ for a consultant, I would like to sit down with the chairman of the task force and Ron, and just kind of view the recommendations one by one, just to determine the quick action recommendation that I could implement immediately. And then understanding of what am I asking from the consultant to do, I think from the parking task force and also from Ron being there. And also I might involve the chief and the parking ambassador, supervisor, or the enforcement.
So I'm not sure if that's what Valley was hitting on, but the other thing I'd like to do is have staff reach out to the current parking task force and start gauging the interest of how we're going to formulate some sort of board or task force in perpetuity that can help. See, one of the things that I think they can help us with is they can hold our feet to the fire. They can also be part, anyway, for various reasons. I think that I would at least like staff to reach out and start formulating some idea of how some task force or committee would work long term.
Hang on, just a second. Without objection, we have a motion, but this is different. But so without objection, we will direct staff to do exactly as both Commissioner Perrine and Commissioner McGurk said. Any objections to that? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
probably separate and we'll go back to the motion.
Perfect. Any other discussion on the motion? Commissioner Hartman, you've been here for a while, and I always value your opinion. Are we moving in the right direction?
We made a motion and seconded it, so that's the direction we're headed, so we need to vote and then move on.
Very good. Any other discussion? So, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes?
Commissioner Perine?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done, Jay.
Thank you.
Any other comments from any of the commission? Yes, sir, Vice Mayor.
So what I would like is there was another easier thing was to change the parking on Flagler. Maybe you or Ron could get with the businesses along Flagler, make sure that you have a consensus among them that would be okay, and then bring it to the December workshop. You can bring that along with whatever, if you reach out to our current parking consultant we have now, and, they have some ideas about a parking guru, we could discuss that more in depth and maybe get more detailed into it at the workshop that's scheduled in December. So, if we have a consensus, and we could put that on the agenda for the December meeting, if there's time allowed.
And just to go back on the 2 and 4 hours, when we did the first parking task force, we recommended 2 hours. The merchants, if I recall at the time, they said, no, let's make it 4 hours. So, but it's not a big problem to change it, if that's what the consensus is, to change it to 2 hours. So, and the other thing I want to point out is the surface parking lot. I just want to put it up front. We had 2 cases where we got a surface parking to be done, and we had a plan. We brought it to the commission, and the residents adjacent to the parking lot came out and they were opposed to the surface parking, and we did not do it. So controversial will be there, whether you do surface parking, structured parking, it's going to be there. So it's not going to be as simple as everybody thinks. Let's just do surface parking and everybody will be good and dandy. So,
Zoe and Liz, did your organizations give you input that arrived at the idea to change the timing?
I feel like in Flagler's situation, so much has evolved. I was at all those previous meetings for years and years, and so much has changed on the street. I feel like that people are going to be, the merchants are going to be more cognizant of accepting some changes. The biggest thing that our merchants have said, especially if they're in a service-related industry, is, what if somebody's coming in to get a perm in their hair and it takes 3 hours and, they can't park for more than 2? Or sometimes like a busy Saturday, of eating out would take longer. And I think that Ron had presented that there could be some sort of special tags that the merchants that were in that situation could give to a client that would allow them to extend their time so that they could finish their hair service or their, massage or whatever the situation might be. So that.
Appreciate.
I think working with the merchants and making them feel like they're.
Yeah, I appreciate, obviously, that's a good approach. Thank you, that's perfect. Did you happen to get input from your association on moving from 4 to 2 hours?
I have not,
Okay.
because this wasn't decided as of yet, so, I think that our association, I'm just gonna be completely honest, is in more of a support to moving directly to a paid parking, and not going from 4 to 2, just jumping right into everything should be paid, and, I can tell you, I came from a city that went through that transition from,
That's perfect. I appreciate the examples. I really wanted to know if your associations jumped in with you before you made the recommendation, because I believe you guys have made the recommendation to 2 hours.
I believe, in my opinion, we, as a task force, really would like to see it go to a paid parking.
I understand the paid parking, but I think as a task force in there is a 2-hour recommendation. So, and I see your colleagues nodding their heads. Liz, what about Canal? Different? Same? You did not do it prior to making this recommendation, though?
No.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I want to go where Zoe went and straight to paid. It obviates any discussions about 2 hours versus 4 hours, and it's something we could implement very quickly. So we could have paid parking if people don't want to spend the money on it. It makes it, shall we say, good encouragement for them to carpool or bike or walk. And so there are other side benefits to it. But I'd happily forego the conversation about 2 versus 4 and go straight to paid.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Okay, let's call the question. Madam City Clerk, the motion is to hire a consultant. And we had a second, so please call the roll.
We already did.
We already did.
We did.
We did. You voted that? Okay. Excellent. Any further discussion? All right, we're adjourned.